to Weekly World News on Spring Nectar TV, brought to you by Vibha Ramesh, Los Angeles, United States. First, the top headlines. Democrats to pass $1 trillion infrastructure bill, confirms Nancy Pelosi. Post-Brexit rules cause confusion over air travel. India signs pact with United States on export, External Affairs Minister in Mexico. Germany to form coalition government. Oldest human footprints discovered, a sneak peek. Moving on to news in detail. The United States House Speaker Nancy Pelosi confirmed on Sunday that Democrats will pass the $1 trillion infrastructure bill. She said to ABC, "Let me just say that we're going to pass the infrastructure bill this week. I'm never bringing a bill to the floor that doesn't have the votes." Further, she also confirmed that she would hold talks with Biden on the $3.5 trillion social spending agenda. According to sources, the $3.5 trillion bill was what was holding back the infrastructure bill, as the moderates wanted to pass the infrastructure bill first, while the progressives wanted to combine it with a social spending plan. With the bipartisan infrastructure bill all set to pass this week, discussion to arrive at a consensus on the $3.5 trillion bill is the next step. Meanwhile, several counties in California are reporting an increased number of COVID cases, with many hospitals brimming with patients. Although the state credits itself with the lowest case rate when compared to the rest of the states, the resistance to vaccines, coupled with the advance of the Delta variant, has caused a burst of new cases, causing growing concern. In that context, the decision made by United Airlines to fire nearly 600 unvaccinated workers seems more appropriate. Early August, the company had mandated all domestic employees to get vaccinated. And now, starting Tuesday, they plan to let go of 593 employees who have chosen not to get vaccinated. The carrier also announced that over the next few years, they would be hiring around 25,000 people, and vaccination will be a prerequisite. Moving on to Brexit, latest news has it that there has been a growing confusion over air travel for European citizens living in the UK. The new government rules over ID cards and passports have left people wondering about their status and travel rights. The confusion stems from the rule that starting October 1st, European Union citizens that are not settled in the UK will not be permitted to use EU, EEA, or Swiss national IDs to enter the country. In other words, under the post-Brexit immigration rules, European Union citizens visiting the UK for short visits will have to show a passport. In this context, Brussels fears that since the UK government has not yet issued European Union citizens legally settled in the UK with physical residency documents, airlines are going to find it difficult to make the distinction. Over to China. Several parts of the Northeast have been struggling without power as the country faces one of the toughest power shortages. Rationing power supply has suspended production at factories and has left residents braving the falling temperatures with long hours of power cut. The primary cause of power shortage is attributed to restricted coal supplies and rigid emission standards. Now, in the second week of restricted power supply, the nation has appealed to local authorities and railway companies to speed up coal supplies to utilities. The shortage of power is expected to have a global impact as factories have suspended production, which may lead to a shortage of goods like smartphones and other devices. Meanwhile, the nation has hit record levels of hacking sponsored by the state. In other words, their covert activity, with specific focus on stealing intellectual property, has become more open and careless. According to experts, the low-level cyber war is escalating, even though Britain and the United States, among others, made efforts to put an end to it. China, however, continues to deny the accusations. Over to India. Steps to augment bilateral trade and investment are underway as External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar visited Mexico on Monday. His 3-day visit was aimed at enhancing cooperation in trade and investment, among other sectors. Following an event meet, Jaishankar had tweeted, "Two continents, two civilizations, shared concerns. Participated at an event in Returned Heritage in Mexico City. Pleasure to meet López Obrador there." India hit another huge milestone, this time towards supply chain security, which will enable quicker clearances through both the United States and India's customs procedures. To that effect, the customs authorities of both the nations signed a pact on Tuesday. Here's what the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs tweeted. Chairman CBICM Ajit Kumar and Acting Commissioner Troy Miller of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the Department of Homeland Security, signed a mutual recognition arrangement to recognize each other's authorized economic operators. Meanwhile, following India's criticism of China's travel restrictions, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying confirmed that the visa curbs were not only meant for India but applied to everyone. He said that China applies entry measures equally to all inbound travelers, including its own citizens. China is willing to work with all countries, India included, to make proper arrangements for the exchanges of personnel in the context of COVID-19, he said. Moving on, the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan welcomes its new president, Fumio Kishida, who came out as a clear winner in the party's presidential election. Where the election began with 4 contestants running for position, the 2 women candidates, Senei Takaichi and Saiko Noda, lost out in the first round of voting itself. That left Fumio Kishida and Taro Kono in a face-off battle which eventually culminated in the victory of the former with 257 votes against 170. Kishida, who was the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, now steps into his new role. Sources say that the general elections will take place in November, before which Kishida will have to address a probable winter outbreak of coronavirus, as well as pull the economy out of the grip of the pandemic. And in Germany, elections to find a successor for Angela Merkel ended with the Social Democrats and Conservative alliance in a neck-to-neck position. The hairline difference in votes between Olaf Scholz of the Social Democratic Party and Armin Laschet of the Christian Democratic Union has put them in a position where both candidates earned the right to form a government. On the other hand, Annalena Baerbock, candidate from the Green Party, expressed her willingness to work with Scholz in forming a coalition. This means the nation will be engaged in several weeks of negotiations before forming a coalition. Olaf Scholz, who is also the current vice-chancellor and the more promising successor to Merkel, said, "The voters have made themselves very clear, and that's why we have a visible mandate that the citizens of this country have formulated." Meanwhile, the UK is facing a dire shortage of fuel, leading to long lines at gas stations and panic buying and topping off of fuel by many. On Monday, fuel prices skyrocketed to an 8-year high, with several gas stations running dry. Commenting on the situation, Kwasi Kwarteng, the business secretary, said that the UK continues to have strong supplies of fuel. However, we're aware of supply chain issues at fuel station forecourts and are taking steps to ease these as a matter of priority. If required, the deployment of military personnel will provide the supply chain with additional capacity as a temporary measure to help ease pressures caused by spikes in localized demand for fuel. Meanwhile, German Vice-Chancellor Olaf Scholz pointed out the current situation as being a repercussion of UK's decision to exit from the European Union, as he remarked, "The free movement of labour is part of the European Union, and we worked very hard to convince the British not to leave the Union. Now they decided different, and I hope that they will manage the problems coming from that, because I think it is constantly an important idea for all of us to make it happen that there will be good relations between the European Union and the UK, but this is a problem to be solved." Culminating this week's report with the latest revelation on the oldest human footprint. Based on new research, archaeologists have unraveled the oldest known human footprints in New Mexico. The 12 footprints were found buried in layers of soil in the national park, which scientists believe belonged mostly to teenagers and children. Until recently, it was believed that human appearance on Earth dated back to 11,000 to 13,000 years ago. But the recent discovery has led scientists to believe that humans probably walked the Earth even before that, say 21,000 to 23,000 years ago. With that thought, I'm going to end this week's news report. I'll see you again next week with more world news on Spring Nectar TV. Stay safe.